Hey friends, it's 6:01 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's a hybrid public meeting of Clark County Agricultural Advisory Commission, September 24th, 2025. I'm Mo McKenna, and I'm one of the co-chairs of this commission, and the staff has been kind enough. Staff has been kind enough to give me a little script to work from. Thank you, staff. Regular meetings and public hearings of the Clark County Agricultural Commission are held in a hybrid format with both in-person and virtual participation options for commissioners, staff, and the public. You're welcome to participate in any way that works best for you. For those of you joining remotely via computer, you should be able to see tonight's meeting agenda on your screen. If you can't see the screen and you've joined by phone only, I will be announcing the agenda items as we move through the meeting topics. Members of the public and applicants who have joined remotely are attendees. Other event participants cannot hear you unless your audio is acknowledged by the commission chair or staff and are unmuted. Here's our agenda tonight, folks. We're going to do a roll call. We're going to do an approval of the agenda. We're going to do approval of our August 27th meeting notes. We're going to take some general public comment, talk a little bit about some commission business. The majority of our time tonight will be spent on the agricultural land study presentation and discussion. Go to the order, and then we're going to adjourn. We're going to start with a roll call of commission members who are present for the meeting. Please say, "I'm here," after I call your name. Zora Oppenheimer.
I'm here.
Amy Treasure. Ruud van der Salm.
I'm here.
Holly Hansen.
I'm here.
Diane Dempster.
I'm here.
Mo McKenna's here. Dylan Haggerty. Justin Berger.
I'm here.
Kevin Dobbins. Joe Zimmerman.
Present.
Matthew Cornwell.
I'm here.
Isaiah Irish.
I am here.
And Tyler Berenson.
I'm here.
That's a quorum, yeah? Yeah.
And Chair, we do have another person online with the initials JLH. I'm not sure. Does that correspond with anyone who's not here? No.
That I see.
No. Okay. That's not a member of the commission. So we'll check that during public.
All right. We're going to keep her moving. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The agenda is approved. All right, meeting notes. You do have a copy of the meeting notes. Thank you, staff. I'll now take a motion for the approval of the August 27th meeting notes. Please make sure you say your name when you make a motion and for the second so staff can record that for the meeting notes. Do we have a motion and a second?
Justin Berger, motion to approve the last meeting's meeting notes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
What's going on with the formatting?
What was that, Zora?
What's going on with the formatting? There's like big spaces and stuff. I don't know.
Yep. You're muted.
I do the meeting minutes. Is there a request for different spacing or what's the issue?
No, just like on the top page.
I think that's a printing issue. But I'll double check that it's fixed in the document.
All right, motion passes. We've approved the August 27th meeting notes. We will now take public comment on any items outside public hearing items. We're going to begin with attendees in the room. If there is anybody, please approach the microphone if you would like to make a public comment.
There's one person in the room and she has indicated no comment.
Okay, great.
All right. Oh, two.
Okay.
No room comments.
All right, great. Anybody online want to make a public comment?
We have a couple folks online. So I will first let my coworker read the instructions, and then I will do unmute requests.
Okay. If you are using a computer or WebEx application on a tablet or smartphone, like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. There are instructions on how to do this on the screen. Typically, the hand icon is located toward the bottom of your screen, but you may need to click on the icon that looks like a circle with 3 dots in order to see that raise hand option. For anyone on the telephone audio only option, please dial *3 on your phone's number panel to raise your hand. Staff will be able to see hands once they are raised and will request to unmute you one at a time. Please note that public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person in order to accommodate all speakers.
And we had a hand raised from Jude Waite. So Jude, you should be able to unmute yourself and make a comment now, should you wish. Looking like the hand has been lowered. So nope, now the hand's back up. Jude, I have sent you an unmute request. You should be able to unmute yourself now. We are not having Jude unmute herself, so I know we have comments in the record. Try it one more time, Jude. Yes, you're still muted. Okay, well, I'm not sure what's going on with her muting, but we need to move on.
All right, thanks. This now concludes the general comment portion of the meeting. We're going to move on to commission business. I have 3 things from the executive group that we discussed. I just want to fill you all in on. 1, you are going to receive a very brief survey to your inbox, commission members. I promise it's very brief. The goal is to really collect your feedback on what topics you want to see this commission tackle, what you feel passionate about, what kind of subcommittees you think we should form, subcommittees you'd want to serve on, and just a few other things that we want your input on to make sure that we're doing a great job and being really productive with this commission. So you'll get that after the meeting tonight. Second, we have already heard, and we discussed it briefly in our last meeting, some issues around code enforcement related to agricultural building exemptions, ag land, ag structures. And so we have asked the staff to kind of circle the wagons internally and come back and work really present to us what the policies are, what we're seeing from code enforcement, and then providing some next steps to this group, really, that we can work collaboratively with them on it. So that's coming. Just be aware that it's moving, but our time in this commission, as you all know, really needs to be focused on the ag study in the short term. Finally, the dates for the next 3 meetings are likely to change. One, because we need to find a time for more public feedback about the agricultural land study. And the date that is proposed is or a date that looks really good is our next meeting. Second, the November meeting is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and the December meeting is on Christmas Eve. So assuming you don't want to be spending time with us on those holiday evenings, we're going to find new dates for those. And we have some ideas, and we'll send those out after the meeting and make sure that it works for most. Any other commission business that I haven't covered? Folks want to add anything?
Or if we want to announce, I do have a connection to the Clark County Executive Force Council concerning the building codes. Okay, well, I guess I'll mention it right now. Concerning that horse boarding and code enforcement, I do have connections to the Clark County Executive Force Council. I would suggest when we get to that topic, that issue item, we do bring them in to speak on that item. So just wanted to share that.
Anybody have anything else or any questions or thoughts about what I shared?
Matthew Cornwell. Personally, I hate microphones, so if I go in and out, something about hearing myself talk just does me terrible. So I'll just trust that I'm hearable. I was entering today thinking about subcommittees because it feels like 2 hours can go by really fast. And then you have this month lag of not doing anything productive and feeling like, I don't know what the timeline is. Maybe it's been covered, but it seems like there's urgency. And so to just be passive for a month is a weird feeling when there's urgency. I guess I'll wait for the survey to input my subcommittee thinkings, but I agree that seems to be a good use of our energy.
Awesome. Anybody else? All right, hearing none. Let's move on. So we're going to move on to the agricultural resource land study presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Oliver, Jose, and the consulting team.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Oliver Jacko, Clark County Community Planning. So I will begin just framing the conversation, then I'll be turning that over to our consultant. At the last meeting, staff introduced Eco Northwest and Triangle Associates as the consulting firm that the council approved to conduct the agricultural land study or resource study. And at that meeting, we went over or provided you and engaged with you in a way to build a shared understanding on the foundational element of designating agricultural resource land in Clark County. We also explained to you or discussed with you what the resource requirements or element in designating resource land by focusing on state requirements and also talking briefly about local context, and then introduce to you the approach that the consultant will be taking in the analysis, and then solicited your input on certain criteria for the analysis. So today we are going to provide you a brief recap of the project objective and state requirements. We are going to do so in showcasing or sharing with you the currently mapped data with a variety of sources that we will discuss with you, focusing primarily on agricultural production capabilities in Clark County. I know you're going to have a lot of questions because the various sources have different methodology, but we will go through that with you. By so doing, we'll be seeking feedback from you on the mapped data, and then we'll be discussing or having discussion with you on potential new areas for analysis, or we should look for analysis or consider. So you already know the purpose of this agricultural study. We shared with you that we have to follow the criteria as it is specified in Washington Administrative Code, particularly Section 365-10-050. You can read this on your own. I come with my own copy, but feel free to look and read that. It is the state administrative code that laid out the criteria to be used for classification of resource land, particularly agricultural resource land. And with that, I will turn it over to Barrett, who will be going over the work criteria and then focusing on the data and how that relates to Clark County in particular, and then let you know the role that they're following to conduct this analysis. I know that the time frame is short, but we are working as quickly as we can, not to rush, but to work with you to help us complete this resource before it is presented to our council. With that, I'll turn it over to Barrett. And both Barrett, and Jose are here to answer questions that you may have.
Thank you, Oliver. My name is Barrett Lewis. I'm with Echo Northwest. Also on the line, we have Jennifer Cannon, who is the senior project manager for this project. Okay, so I'm starting with a slide that you've already seen last time. This is just a brief recap over the WAC criteria. So the GMA directed the state to create these minimum guidelines as codified in the WAC 365-190-050. So this sets 3 factors for designating agricultural lands. First one is not characterized by urban growth. Second one is used or capable of being used for agricultural production. And then the third one has long-term commercial significance. These rules provide a framework for identifying agricultural lands while granting counties the flexibility to adapt methods for regional and priorities. So today we're going to focus on the used or capable of being used for agricultural production. This is in part because as part of the agricultural community, we know you are experts on this subject. And you are close to the ground and you can vet and ground truth the data that we are showing you. So as backing up a little bit, where we are in a methodology development process. So we have defined the study area based on the appropriate relevant land designations. So that's shown in this map. So it's the 2 agriculture land designations and then rural center residential, and then the 3 other rural residential land designations. So from here, we are mapping our criteria. We are gathering public input, such as this commission meeting, as well as the 2 open house workshops that we're doing, as well as stakeholder interviews. And then we will present our findings in late October, early November. November 4th is when we our report will be finalized. And this is just the orientation map, essentially, of where our study area is. So the study area is the, thicker black line, the, lighter gray color there, and then the agricultural designations are in green. When we show the criteria, we're going to be showing 2 different maps. We'll have 2 different slides for each criteria. One will show the criteria as mapped in the entire study area. And then the second slide will show it as mapped purely in the agricultural designation area.
I had a question for you, Barrett.
Sure.
So, and maybe this Councilor Marshall can help with this too. The urban growth area that is outside of the city boundaries is under county jurisdiction, correct? Is still, county still has jurisdiction over that. It doesn't belong to the city of Vancouver unless it has been annexed into the city.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm very curious to see this same data from the urban growth area over which the county has jurisdiction.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, we can definitely look into that. Thank you.
So are you talking about the urban area?
Yeah.
Urban unincorporated?
Yeah, I just, and maybe there's like a third set of maps, but I'd be very interested. I think there's a lot of prime farmland in those urban growth areas that are not city.
That's so just to be clear, that is not within the scope of this project.
Yes, to parrot what Mo is saying, I realize 100% not within the scope of this project. Okay. The problem is, as a farmer, I find it a little bit disingenuous to just hash out all of the urban growth area. I think it misses a key historic part, or let's just say a historical issue that Clark County has been dealing with, and that is that we have allowed an awful lot of prime ag land to fall into the urban growth area without consideration. I would like to see what that farmland looks like. I would like to request that we see a full countywide, at least one, that we have the opportunity to at least see one map mapping ag land countywide, period.
It's already been rezoned.
I understand that, 100%. I'm speaking from a historical standpoint. How much ag land has been lost to the urban growth area? That's what I'm asking.
My impression is you're talking about context, right? Just the context of what has already been.
Yes.
And just to clarify,
Mhm.
so Mo, you asked for the areas that are within the county jurisdiction. So that's what you want, or do you want to see all of the urban?
I'd like to see all of it.
I think we could classify it pretty well as like high risk for development areas that are currently in ag use. So that would give us a pretty good idea what's on the chopping block if that's within the urban growth boundary.
You see, sorry. Let me back up a second. I'll just say it.
Our county council has her hand raised. So Chris Cook has a comment,
Yes.
I think.
That's okay. I'll wait until Joe finishes.
Okay,
Yes, thank you. Sorry, by the way, I forgot to state my name when I began. Joe Zimmerman, of course. Hey, yes, I would like to see a map that designates all ag land regardless of urban growth area. The problem is that I see as a longtime Clark County resident is we are dealing with a historic problem that we have already paved over a majority of the best ag land in this county. And so I see that there is an additional, let's just say, historic variable that we need to consider here. And I'd like to at least have the opportunity one time to see what the ag land looks. Let's put it this way. I'd like to see what the ag land looks like under Vancouver Mall, if that makes any dang sense to anyone else.
So, and just one more clarification. So when you say ag land, you're talking about the
Land, sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, land. I'd like to see the soil qualities countywide, period. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, can I talk now? Is this a good time?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to say, the historic changes to agricultural land in the county in terms of zoning and development would be fascinating. I'm not sure how relevant they are to the current periodic review and update. I would guess that enlarging the study area by that amount would have something to do with the consultant's scope of work, and we might need to discuss that.
If I could say something else again here, I know that Justin O'Day is sitting next to me, and I do believe he has most of those maps available, probably not at within fingers reach, but it wouldn't take too long for him to pull those maps up. Is that correct, Justin?
No, yeah, it's very easy.
Oh, just shut your mic off.
I was on, sorry. Yeah, it's easy for me to pull those up. Yeah.
Look like Zara has a.
The area that is outside the study area, but is not in an urban growth area, why is that not in the study area? Like the grade spot, the big gray spots? I mean, a lot of this is forest land, obviously, but is all of it
That
something else?
That area is currently all zoned as forested land. That's what those are. Are you talking about this area?
Yeah, well, I mean, just across the entire county, there's areas that are patchworked outside of the study area. So that's all forest land?
Correct.
Okay, that might be something to put on the map.
Thank you.
Like, I know this is all forest land. I just wasn't sure about the,
Sure.
sorry, excuse my French.
Okay. So we're going to focus on the agriculture production for today. I'm not going to read this whole, section of the WAC criteria off. The main thing I want to highlight as we're going forward is that we are determining whether lands are used or capable of being used for agricultural production, and that counties or cities shall use the land capability classification system of the United States Department of Agricultural, Natural Resources, and Conservation Service. That's important because that's going to be one of the things that I show. So we're going to be showing a few different data sources. And one thing that I primarily am wanting your opinion on is how you feel about these data sources when I show you them. So we have multiple data sources for soils. We've got a couple for crop coverage, and we have one for irrigation. So we'll start by looking at the different measures of soil quality, and then we will review on current crop coverage. Our intent is to rely on these publicly available sources with verification and quality control available for the county with little to no data manipulation from us other than just putting it on a map. We want to give you the source information with no analytical methods used for showing you the data. So for soils here, there are two primary sources of data. We have the USDA NRCS data. We have American Farmland. They have a PVR index. We're going to go into all this. We also have, I'll just go ahead and get into it. So we're going to go ahead and start with soils. So here is the 8-class NRCS soil capability classification system that was mentioned in that WAC subsection. So what it shows is the, one second. I made all my notes very large font and my pages are too big now. So essentially this system of soil capability is looking at the limitations of soil. It's not necessarily looking at soil health itself, but it's looking at the limitations of soil in terms of how easy it is or how hard it is to farm on this. So it takes into account slope and erosion risk, soil properties, water hazards, and climate. And it categorizes soils from classes of 1 to 8, 1 through 4 being farmable, essentially, and 5 to 8 being not fit for farm use. So as you go, down the numbers or go up in the numbers, farming becomes harder to achieve. So as you're looking at the table, you can see that only 4% of the study area has soil with only slight limitations, but combined with moderate limitations, that makes up about 35%. Likewise, 35% of the study area's soil has severe or very severe limitations for farming. That is still farmable. And then taken together, that 70% of land that is considered fit to farm, it's about 70%. With about 31, there's some rounding going on there, is considered unfit to farm. So what this means is that the land has a fairly even split between those three groupings. But if you keep in mind that 1 through 4 is farmable.
And Barrett, I'll just add on the key, it's the brown areas that are unfit.
Yes.
Farm use. If you're looking at that, it's really hard to read now.
Yeah, hopefully this comes through, the colors come through okay. I tried to make it as
Today.
Yes.
I'd like to raise a point. Granted, if you can't build on it, but down in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a big brown section of about 6,000 acres that I was currently disking in today. So it's covered in silage corn. So that is definitely farmable.
Okay.
I just wonder if it was that it's in a floodplain or something. Was that one of the considerations? Because the floodplain might be a really good place to grow.
Well, and on the next page on the DNR site, it's listed as prime farm ground. So,
yeah.
We recognize that.
I will. Yeah, we can look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we have this group.
I mean, I'm looking at all the farmland between 179th and 219th, west of 72nd, if you guys know where that's at. And it's all moderate limitations. That's wonderful farmland there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Justin, you're the one that has experience on this. Do you know why they may have ruled some of these this way?
There's a chance of when it was done could have been factoring in. These are pretty, they're not fine scale, they're gross scale. Though what Tyler pointed out that's worthy of looking into, whether there's an error in there.
Is there potential that this is old data?
There's potential it's old data, yeah. Okay. But it would probably be just certain portions that it doesn't fit anymore.
one other question I have is briefly, as I was looking through here at the irrigated sections, there's areas there, that one brown section in particular, that does not have any irrigation capability. It's sub-irrigated, but there's no water rights on it. I would like to see perhaps an overlay of agricultural water rights, if we could. This is near and dear to Joe's heart, but because I think that's a really key issue on this. If farmland has water rights on it that are active, that's gold. So.
Yeah, we won't go into that topic too much. Water rights. And I'm so sorry. Your name one more time?
It's Barrett.
Barrett. Sorry, Barrett. Okay. Water rights near and dear to our heart. Our farm's been only dealing with it for now about 17 years, trying to get through the system in Washington State. I just from memory put down about 11 water rights just in and around the Brush Prairie area that are not represented on the map in any way, shape, or form. And that's just from memory. I'd love to go through here and see. And I could even direct you guys to, or help you out with that to get that going. But yeah, there are all sorts. In fact, sorry. The reason that our farm can't get water rights are because of all of the water rights that are on the books not currently being used in this area. And so I would like to see those represented, because that speaks volumes to an asset that many farms are not using right now. I'll just leave it at that.
Just another perspective on water. Our farm, we've been farming for 65 years, dryland farming, currently in hazelnuts, and at maturity, we're looking at getting $3,000 to $4,000 an acre with dryland farming. And you could make more if it was irrigated, but there's a lot of successful dryland farming, and it ties in with the soil type as well, because we have Hillsborough silt loam, and it's one of its properties is retaining water. So I think there's definitely an interplay between water and soil.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. One thing that I just want to make the distinction on for this, soil capability classification, again, is that it is mostly measuring the physical, geographical limitations, not necessarily soil health. So that is a difference between what I'm about to show you in terms of prime farmland. So here is the, in the ag designation, the numbers don't change a whole lot. There's still about a third split between slight, moderate limitation, severe and very severe, and not fit. So here we have the USDA Soil Survey Geographic Database, or SURGO. So this shows the ratings of soil in Clark County. This essentially is soil health, or but this is under optimal conditions. If this is if this land is managed to the best extent, it has mitigated erosion, things like that, then it will get a high rating. As you can see, that the study area is has pretty high soil quality. It's 55% prime, 27% statewide importance. So prime is your kind of gold standard, and your statewide importance is your sort of silver medal, essentially, if you will. When we go into the ag designations themselves, the soil quality shoots up. I mean, we got 76% prime farmland and 17% statewide importance. Not prime or statewide is 8%. So the takeaway is that the agricultural designation is currently doing, it has good soil in it.
And so I'll just chime in. The yellow is the not prime or statewide importance. So all the green is showing the prime soils. And one thing about this data set, I'll say that is pretty unique, is that it's based off a combination of field surveys, laboratory analysis, and digital cartography. to give you a little bit more accuracy.
Zora Oppenheimer. So you're showing, I just want to make sure I understand. You're showing all of the soil in the study area on the first map. And then the second map is the soil on the parcels or the areas that are zoned ag. That's what
I just wanted you all to be able to see, the study area as a whole, and then be able to center in on what is currently designated agriculture.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Because it's hard to make that distinction on a map when it's in, small form.
This is Joe Zimmerman. I'd like to point out something here that I'm finding very concerning. Okay, it is true that when we go from the study-wide map where there's only 55% prime to the ag only where there's 76% prime, that sounds wonderful. We have an increase in prime soils. The problem is we've gone from 75,000 acres to 33,000 acres, meaning we have excluded 41,560 acres of prime ag land, meaning that there's more excluded than included. I think we need to wrap our heads around that.
And Joe, this is Oliver, if I may, if you go back to that SOGO map,
The study area wide one.
the study area wide one, my takeaway from that is that it appears to show areas that one could say could qualify for designation of ag that is not yet designated. That's my takeaway from looking at this. So when you look at that, just the study area, 137 plus acres, there are 75,000 plus, 55% that is prime, and then statewide importance 35. Then you get to your areas that are designated as ag. It's only 33,000. So you can see how this is shaping up. And this is, in my opinion, I'm not making any recommendation now, but this is the potential implication of doing this, because you may identify more areas that should have been designated ag that was missed. So while ECHO will get to this, they're not making a recommendation, but that is what, if this study says, the council will be faced to make a policy call on what those should be. Just from looking at this, my takeaway from it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that each of these maps are a lens to look through, a specific lens. How they overlap, that will be the fundamental analysis. But I want to show you each lens individually.
Right.
Oliver, thank you for that perspective. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I was going to mention one thing. When I did the interview related to this, I was supposed to get connected with you so I could get my GIS tool to you, because it takes this SSU RGO map and it kind of puts a lot more detail on it.
Yeah. I think there was a email that we were trying to be connected. I remember there an email going out that we were CC'd on, but I will make sure, because I remember you saying that, and I wanted to get that data. I want as much data as possible.
Yeah, and we added filters, so like you can filter out the areas that have been developed versus the opposite. You can see what farmland is underneath development right now too.
Yeah. Yep.
It's useful in that regard.
Okay. So I just wanted to, kind of already mentioned this, but essentially soil capability versus SURO is that soil capability is looking at, again, the general limitations for soil. So it could be, theoretically it could be prime soil, but it could be on a slope, a very steep slope. SURGO is looking at the soil quality itself. So just, we already went over that, but just differentiation between what those two are looking at.
I'll also just mention, when we think about the NRCS data related to soils, there's a classification called prime farmland if drained. And there are a lot of soils in our area that are wet. And I found that to be a tremendously great soil as we have longer, hotter summers. They retain water really well. So I think that there's a lag there in terms of NRCS looking at that soil classification specifically. I'd be very interested in how many of our soils are going to move from moderate limitations to slight limitations as we think about these long, hot summers that we have.
And that's a good point. We are mapping this at a pretty general level for just mapping's sake and showing you the data. It does go more in depth, and that will definitely be part of our analysis. So we're going to show you a alternate way of looking at soil. This is just to give you a third data source, if you will. This is the Productivity, Versatility, and Resilience Score Index from the American Farmland Trust. What this does is trying to take a more modern approach to looking at soil. What this essentially does is it says which pieces of farmland are the best to protect for the future. So what this does is that traditionally the PVR, which I should go ahead and define PVR. PVR is, or productivity, so this measures the land's inherent capacity to produce high yields. This is based on the NRCS's National Commodity Crop Productivity Index. We have versatility, which measures the land's flexibility to support a wide variety of crops. And we have resiliency, which is the land's measured, measures the land's ability to remain productive during climate-related stresses. So again, holistic, tries to kind of pull together a lot of those different lenses into one score. So what this does is essentially it looks at the county average. Traditionally, it looks at the state average, but we want to gear it towards the county. So we're looking at the county average and goes from 0 to 1. So we have mapped here areas that are above the county average. So these would be areas that have a higher, productivity, versatility. It's hard to in 3 sentences, but basically there's about 40,000 acres, 29% of the study area, that would be considered farmland to consider protecting. And for the ag designations, which the average score is 44, the acres above county average is 16,300. So that's 48% of the designated ag land. So we are showing you this just to bring you an additional data point, to bring you context, help you gut check certain things. We want to show you not only what the soil is and what it can grow, but how valuable it is for farming over the long run, and just give you a modern big picture score of what soil can be in farmland.
Garrett, can you tell me more about what's behind that number? Did you all do any analysis about what are they basing that number on? What's pulling it down? Is it productivity? Is it?
I was going to mention something about that. Because I remember looking into this a while back, and the thing that kind of stood out for Clark County in particular was that, and I think it was in the PVR score, that they count, part of the criteria counted what's currently being farmed there and what's the average value of the crop being produced. So it really is on a high triage level of what ag land to save, because it's currently in production. So basically you'd be wiping out somebody's farm, right? But it doesn't count what Joe was talking about, where there's a bunch of ag land that's maybe idle right now because some landholders just decided they don't want to farm anymore and they're holding it, and it doesn't take that into account.
Are those only acres that are those only acres that are reported to USDA in the survey?
No, I think the PVR uses uses imaging.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't remember the NCLD.
I think it uses a hybrid approach. I don't have it with me right now, but it does incorporate multiple data sources from my understanding.
Okay.
Mo, to your question, I don't have that information in front of me. We have a very brilliant GIS analyst who does a lot of this analysis. She will be at the workshop on Tuesday. So she will be able to answer more of those questions. But also, if you want to submit them to Jose and Oliver, we're happy to send you a more detailed explanation.
Great. Just to by the way, this is Joe Zimmerman again. Just to make sure that everybody knows what Tyler and Justin were talking about. Of course, so, all farmers in the United States are supposed to report to the United States Department of Ag about their crop production. I'm sure most of the landowners in Clark County don't. Not to mention the numbers that we report because of our farm and the fact that we're so diverse, our numbers don't even make sense. And so I'm sure that even our farm, the numbers skew Clark County just because, it's kind of hard to account for, 1/10 of an acre of production of something like that. Anyhow, and so it makes me wonder, I just got to throw out there, the numbers derived from U.S. Department of Ag may be skewed, especially when we're concerning Clark County.
This is Tyler Berenson. Does anyone know if there has ever been an actual ag survey done by the county, like with mailers or anything like that sent out directly to landowners?
I don't think so.
On what subject?
Well, for instance, if you're trying to put your land into ag use tax classification, you have to prove it, right? If you're mowing your pasture, your neighbor's grazing cattle on it. There's a lot of people who have 5-10 acres that just let somebody cut the hay off of it for free because they want to keep the weeds down. That would show in the data for just the county.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any study.
Are you talking about the current use program?
Yes and no, kind of. I think Joe understands what I'm trying to get at, though, is just what are you currently doing with your land? It can be an open space, it can be an R5, whatever you want, nothing to do with the tax classification. But are you running cows on it? Are you cutting hay on it? Are you got a greenhouse operation? Do you just go out and bush hog it twice a year? It would be along the lines of a USDA survey, but just countywide.
This is Oliver, I would think that that type of data may be reported to the ag census when they do their ag census, but I'm not aware of any survey that the county have done on that, but it could just be information through the ag census report. I don't know, but that's just thinking out loud.
Okay, thank you, Oliver.
The closest thing, Zora Oppenheimer, the closest thing I can think of is, I think it's every 5 years, USD or WSDA does surveys of the county. And the district has helped with that, where we literally just drive around and identify what is on different parcels, but it's not like a personalized survey where we're actually talking to individuals. It's just, okay, in this field, they're growing cows. In this field, they're growing wheat, whatever.
This is Ruud Vandersam. I'm really wondering about this PVR map because I know exactly where our farm is on this map. I know the crops we grow. I know we rotate through our whole field. Yet when I look at our field on this map, we get, none of the yellow and high numbers, but we get all of the lower numbers kind of throughout our field, which is really strange because it's one field. Our crops rotate through it. So while I love the detail of this map, by looking at our field and knowing what we grow in our field and knowing what data is available for that, I really have to question how you come up with such, not you personally, how they came up with such a graded scale when I know it's one field, kind of all the same soil.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good comment.
I know the first map was also odd. I mean, knowing where Tyler farms and other people farm and then seeing that that's unfarmable. And I understand that they're trying to take other things in consideration, slope of land and things like that. But it's like, I know our farm was listed as like somewhat feasible, but it's like, it's just flat farmland, like normal farmland. I don't know what, again, I wonder what data goes into that for them to give us those classifications. Some of the other maps make a lot more sense, but the PVR and the first one really was kind of like a head scratcher.
Yep. And the reason we're bringing you this data is for that gut check right there. That's what we want to hear.
This is Joe Zimmerman again. Yes, same thing with the PVR study map here. One of the things I'm noticing is I'm not seeing much in the way of distribution. What you would call what in statistics you refer to as standard distribution. It's great to see the scores down here. Countywide average 0.41, study average, area average 0.42, ag designation average 0.44. But what I'm not seeing across the map is distribution in the rest of the score range. Now I understand, of course we're going to have a standard distribution bell curve, if you will. However, I guess I don't, to use the proper term, I don't see a proper standard deviation across that. I believe that the numbers may be skewed. And I'm just concerned about that. At least that's all I want to call to your attention is I believe that the data may be skewed slightly.
Which map are you referring to?
The American Farmland Trust. Essentially, what I'm getting at there, Sue, is that Councilor Marshall, is that I believe there isn't enough data to make a broad bell curve, if you will, and rather what we're seeing is a rather narrow bell curve where there's very little difference between, the mean, if you will, and the prime farmland ag designation average is only slightly higher. If you consider that the scale is 1 to 0.41, we should see, a distribution, broader than that.
Yep, that's a good point. Okay, so I'm going to talk about crop and irrigation coverage now. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with USDA Cropscape. This is a nationwide raster data set. It is done primarily through remote sensing, so satellite imagery. And I'm very interested in everyone's perspective on this map. This shows in the study area, when we remove developed land, things like that, that we get 98% of the study area is grassland pasture. This is not counting hay. And then all other acres of all the crops there's 2%, so 1,100. And then there's a question there at the bottom, but I want to go to the next slide real quick, which is that in the ag designations, the majority share of grassland pasture stays about the same, about 95.4%, and acres of all other crops, 4.6. So a little bit of a rise of all other crops. Just reflect your knowledge on the ground.
Ruud van der Salm again. Our farm has not been in grass or pasture since as long as we farmed it, starting in 81. And we are very much listed as grass and pasture. So I really question this map hugely.
Pretty sure this is the National Land Cover Database, right? This is just satellite images and it's best guesses.
Yeah.
I think it's if they see rows, it changes the designation.
Zora Oppenheimer, the resolution is so small at 30 meters. I would think that that would be more accurate on much larger farms, but so many of the farms in Clark County are small that even 90 feet is going to have, I mean, that's small, but it's going to be a lot of variation within that. So yeah, I don't know. I'd question that. Yeah, in acres and acres and miles of corn, that's going to be different.
We're going to show you an alternative crop data set here. So the state of Washington has their own agricultural layer. This one is done with a combination. These are some site surveys. There is some also remote sensing going on here. So this is essentially a hybrid approach. This is also a state of Washington specific data set. So again, getting your gut check here. Pasture land still is in the study area pretty high. It's 44%, 7%. Majority wise, it's not as high, near as high as it was. Hay and silage is 36.6%, and all other crops are 18%. We do have a breakdown of the number of parcels there. I'm not going to, those are for your eyes generally, if you have any observations you want to make there.
This is Joe Zimmerman. I'd say those numbers are much more accurate. Yes.
Great. That's good to know. And then here we have the in the agricultural land designations, the pasture land goes down to 38%, hay and silage goes to 43%, and acres of all other crops are 21.7%. Okay.
And Barry, I'll just say one note about this data set is that they do field verification for this data set. So they go out and survey farmland. So that helps improve the accuracy.
Yep.
We're getting a lot of nodding in the room that this one seems more accurate to us.
I am noting that. Okay. Any other questions, observations about this one? Okay. So I want to talk about irrigation. This irrigation data also comes from that WSDA agricultural layer. This is the only real fine-tuned irrigation data that we can find. Justin, if you have any other sources of data, would love to see it. But essentially, this is another site survey, ground analysis. So they survey farmers. They essentially survey based on your actual irrigation method. So sprinklers, for instance. So of the 32,000 acres of cropland in the study area that is recorded in the WSDA data, 11% of those are irrigated. The most common form of irrigated crop is other crops, which we will break that down more in the future, followed by hay and silage, and pasture is rarely irrigated. So the takeaway here is that in the study area, irrigation is not widespread. When it comes to the agricultural designations, 16% of the cropland within agricultural designations is irrigated, so slightly higher concentration there. And the link between irrigation and crop value is even stronger, with 39% of other crops being irrigated compared to just 2% of pasture. So we're seeing that irrigation is more prevalent within ag designations, concentrated in higher value crops, and this underscores that these zones support more intensive, likely support more intensive and commercially focused farming. So
I wonder how this information is gathered. Is it just based on water rights, or, there's unpermitted allowances from wells?
To my knowledge, it is primarily site surveys, on the ground surveys.
This is Joe Zimmerman. I can tell you it is definitely it is water use. The reason why is I alluded to it earlier. I would direct you to the Washington State Department of Ecology. If you go on their website and look for water rights map search, there is an interactive map. You can pull up every water right in Clark County. I will tell you this is that there is irrigation water rights all across our county. And I would say well over 90%. In fact, I'll be bold. I'd say 95% of all irrigation quantity water rights in Clark County have not been used in the last 30 years.
Okay. So we're going to talk now about current use programs and parcel sizes.
Can I add, sorry, this is Tyler Barrison. Move that back a little bit. Can I just add one thing to this? I really would like to see if we could find a water right overlay, because I can think of at least a dozen parcels in Hawkinson that used to be irrigated when I was a kid that are still sitting there. So that would be the potential for irrigated cropland. So, okay.
Barrett, do you mind if we just pause quickly? I want to see if Isaiah Irish has anything to add to the conversation or anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak.
I've been listening. I think there's been some really good comments. I do not have any of my own particularly to make, but this is a very interesting conversation.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's keep her moving.
Okay. So I want to show you the map of the agricultural current use program. This is GIS data available directly from Clark County's GIS repository. These are parcels enrolled in the farm and agricultural land current use program that have that are active. So the program covers in the study area about 26,000 acres. The largest number of parcels in the program are pretty small, but the largest amount of acreage is in larger parcels, 20 to 100 acres. Takeaway is that the program is used by many small landowners, but its biggest impact in terms of total area comes from the larger, more commercial sized farms. And then we have the agricultural use program within just the agricultural designations. So here we see a significant majority, 63% of all acreage enrolled in the program is within the designations. But while that is 63% is there, it only accounts for about half of the total enrolled parcels throughout the study area.
Ruud Vandersholm here. The 63%, I mean, none of us like paying taxes if we don't have to. So I'm assuming this is probably something pointing to that designated ag land not being farmed as regularly by ag. Because if you were regular ag constantly farming, why do you want to pay 100% if you pay 10%?
This is Joe Zimmerman, and to follow up on what Ruud was saying, I've been saying for many years that I call BS on what a lot of the folks are reporting for, or what I can only imagine what a lot of folks are reporting, because let's just say if it's the fields I drive past, I don't see, and I don't know what the threshold is. Oliver, I don't know, or Jose, I don't know. Do you guys know what the threshold is? I want to say I heard at one time it was like $250 a year per acre or something thereabouts. Yes, no?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was not very high the last time I looked. I mean, it seemed like the bar is very low relative.
It is very low, but it depends on the size of your farm. And if you're over 20 acres, there's no threshold.
Right.
You just need to have a plan.
Right. But to clarify, I'm still calling BS on a whole bunch of them.
the only thing I would add is that I know that the assessor's office has, it's an enforcement thing. And I know they've had been working more recently, maybe in the last decade or so in looking into that. And I know that I've noticed that there's properties that change programs, going from current use to the open space program. And I think there was changes to the program that even if you weren't farming it, that if, you met certain criteria that you're preserving the land for agriculture, you might still qualify for under the open space.
That would be the open space program, not the current use program. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to look at parcel sizes now. So what we're showing here is all tax lots within the study area. So 2/3 of all parcels are smaller than 5 acres. And these small parcels make up nearly 1/3 of the total land. So the rural study area is characterized by significant land fragmentation. But when we look at the agricultural land designations, we see that there are a large majority of individual parcels that are non-conforming, meaning they are smaller than the 20-acre minimum, that were possibly there before current zoning was in place. But the majority of the agricultural land base is in the larger conforming parcels of 20 acres or more.
This is Joe Zimmerman again. I would love to see a parcel size map overlaid with the, what was it? It was the, excuse me, just one moment. The SS Ergo, or Sergo, I guess they call it, USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service Soil Survey Geographic Database. Yeah, that one.
I think just to give some context for people who don't know the history of the parcelization in the county, I think we had FX zoning up until 1980, which would allow an acre that you could divide anything in the rural land down to an acre if it could perk to get a building permit. So there's just a long tradition history of smaller parcel sizes in the county, and it's very interspersed with a lot of larger parcels. And so that's a lot of what's reflected there.
And I also think before the GMA came into effect, there was land use attorneys going out helping landowners parcelize their property, which there's a lot of those parcelized parcels out there that still have the Ag 20 zoning and are farmed still. They haven't developed, but some of them are starting to develop. So it was significant undermining of agricultural viability.
So I think just before the comprehensive plan in 1994 was adopted, there was, there was a run on that parcelization, trying to get in and divide your land before the new zoning kicked in. And I think the council at the time had a moratorium to try to preclude some of that.
Yes, and this is Oliver. However, there are requirements that the parcel size really, you got to look at it from adjacent property. If that property qualifies for ag and is contiguous or next to maybe 1 or 2 acres that shares the same characteristics, you are still required to designate that as agriculture, even though it may be smaller than the minimum parcel size. Just want to put that out there.
I'm bad at saying my name. This is Mo McKenna. I do think though that small parcel sizes are still really, really valuable for protection. Especially when you think about specialty crops, which many farmers in Clark County are moving to because we're right near a metro area that people are buying all those specialty crops. You can grow a lot of value on a very small footprint. And so I would recommend just like not just because we're parcelized, just because we've been carved up. I think especially as you're thinking also about a young farmer or somebody who's just starting out, they're not going to be able to buy 20 acres in Clark County. It's too dang expensive. So I think these 5-acre, 10-acre parcels, whether they're in Ag 20 zoning today or they're in the study area, just incredibly valuable.
But the per acre cost goes down the larger the parcel size, and what it says.
Totally.
We need to hang on to those larger parcels wherever
Totally.
we can, because you couldn't grow hazelnuts and make it worth your while.
We need diversity of
We have to
Yeah.
diversify as much as possible.
Yeah. This is Joe Zimmerman again. I did want to also say I've always had a major frustration that Clark County had, that the largest parcel is 20 acres in Clark County. And I've always said from a historic perspective that from a person, let's say born and raised, born in the 1940s, which let's take ourselves back to 1980 when, Jose's talking about this, this question of, would you like to parcelize, I don't even know if that's a word, your acreage. 20 acres, to somebody born in the 1940s, that was a huge piece of property. Granted, we only have a handful of farmers nowadays that are trying to do large scale conventional agriculture. Tyler's one of them. Kevin Dobbins, of course, is another one. But the catch is that I find extremely frustrating is that in 2025, Tyler, is it even worth taking your tractor down the road for a 20-acre parcel?
I can, sorry, this is Tyler. I do 20 acres an hour with my primary tillage tool. So
yeah, it's in a 20-acre field. You'd be doing more turning around than you would plowing or disking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so and please understand, this is just my perspective, is I've always taken it as a very short-sighted view. Again, keep in mind, I'm talking about a county council that are all dead and gone now. But, a very short-sighted view, to make the largest parcel size 20 acres. Yeah.
To add on what Joe said, in 1940, 1960, 1970s even, you could theoretically still make a living on 20 acres, running a few head of cattle, raising some of your own hay, maybe some berries or some orchard fruit, things like that. It would be a lot easier for beginning farmers to make a living on 20 acres than it would on a 5. You can diversify better. The land size allows for larger upgrades and primary infrastructure projects, barns, irrigation, pasture rotations. But I don't think many people are going to want to buy 4 5s and put them together and try and make it into a 20 anymore. So I think what we need to do is look at our breadbasket areas here that are already in R5, that are either in equine use, small farmers, beginning farmers, things like that, that maybe don't qualify under the guidelines as ag right now. And look at that as our new 20 acres and a plow. So.
Okay. So I'm showing you this again because we're about to go into a discussion slide, which I realize you have your slides in front of you, so you might not need to look at this again, but this is just to remind you of the data sources that we've looked at. So the discussion questions are, of the maps and data presented, what are your general reactions? What do you think is valuable for this analysis? Are there gaps you can identify? And are there other potential or alternative sources of data to look at? That's a lot of questions.
Zora Oppenheimer, I think the two WSDA layers or one WSDA layer in two separate categories is definitely valuable.
I didn't quite catch what you said, Zora.
I really don't like these microphones. I'm sorry. The WSDA layer, I think, is very valuable, and that is used in crop coverage and irrigation.
I think one thing I wanted to mention was entirely naive on my part, but I assume that as part of the ag study, there would be some sort of boots on the ground inventory of the farmland. I worry that in the 5 years that I've been farming here, things have changed drastically. We've had, I think it's one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. And so because of that, I think it's going to be difficult unless you find data that's really recent to get an accurate picture using the data that you've presented currently.
This is Tyler again. Justin, I'd like to tie in with that. I still think if we could figure out a way to do a countywide ag census for property use, because it just occurs to me how many people in these fives have a couple of horses or, I know several people who have a few milk goats, things like that on their 5-acre property. They don't necessarily consider themselves ag because they know they're not big enough to qualify. They probably would like to respond and say, I am currently farming, hobby farming, have a large garden, things like that. It would show us what it's being used for.
I think I just wanted to comment. I think that's valuable, but I don't think, the way the WAC's laid out, we don't have to be farming. You just have to show that the possibility, the potential is there. So for our project and the time constraint we're under, we're just not going to be able to do that. But just to reassure you that we're not missing out because we're not capturing people who may or may not be.
I guess I'd just reiterate the 8-class land capability classification and the Cicergo. If we can connect, I have something that's more detailed that actually kind of adds something more to what the PVR falls short on too. So I think it could add to that, or even supplement it.
I'll
those.
I will find that email chain that I think tried to connect us, but I think it was just one email, and I'll make sure to follow up on that because I definitely want to speak to you about that.
Yeah.
Ruud Vandersum again. On the email we got, I think yesterday, there was an attachment PDF, and that was like the survey, a lot of data, farm incomes from Clark County and things like that. And I think that kind of points also to what Tyler was saying about like these rural fives and stuff. There has to be a lot of ag out there that isn't like zoned ag or whatnot, because like there's thousands that are listed there earning like less than 2,500 a year. So yeah, there probably is a lot of ag happening that's not zoned ag even.
This is Joe Zimmerman. To reiterate something I said earlier, one of the things I'd like to see represented is and maybe this is just a wish, 5, 10, 15, and 20-year ag land loss representation in Clark County.
You really want to see that?
I think that would be good context, Joe. I appreciate that.
Curious if anybody who hasn't spoken or had a chance to provide feedback wants to do so.
I don't know if there's anything out there because it was something we were trying to develop with this GIS tool that we were working on. But if there's some way to quantify the parcelization of farmland, the breakup of contiguous ag, I feel like that's really important. I think that you can see it through the maps that we have on that GIS tool, but it's not like we couldn't figure out a way to quantify it, but it's pretty starkly obvious when you look at the maps themselves.
Are you speaking to like the trend of parcelization over 20 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where like a subdivision's been put smack in the middle of farmland and it just affects everything.
Interesting to see. I used to farm the ground that my son. Yeah. Yeah, when I was about 17 years old, the Cody family paid us to farm to till the land that my subdivision's in. Yeah. Yep.
Did they name it after your farm?
No.
Well, I think one thing that, might be of value in looking across the landscape, even though there are parcelizations, but where there's potential to aggregate agricultural land, I think there would be value in that.
I would also encourage thinking about it in terms of climate change and also cropping patterns, how they've changed, because what USDA, what different people look at as what ag land is, I think is changing substantially. And some of that is parcel size, but, and some of it is what markets demand for what can be grown. And none of that is, part of the study per se. But I think that combined with thinking about parcel sizes and contiguous parcels would be a really important element.
Zora Oppenheimer. I don't know if the agricultural heat maps got to you guys that the district did, but something that I noticed is the American Farmland Trust brown areas or orange areas, the higher score, which is better, are located on some of the hot spots that we identified on the agricultural heat maps. And those were just like an intern looking at parcels and saying, there's animal trails or there's farm equipment that looks like an ag parcel, mixed with data from the county. And I think maybe to kind of springboard or whatever off of what Councillor Marshall was saying, to somehow identify those areas where there is more of all of these things, the higher scores for farmland trust or prime soil and existing ag, and identify those as areas where it might be more important to create more ag parcels. I don't know if that's within the scope of what you guys are doing or not. But
So just to clarify, is it possible to get an overlay where it's like the soil quality is really high, the productivity and viability looks high? Like, where is that? Where are they all coming together?
And sorry, and what are existing parcels that are identified as ag, not necessarily through the county, but through the other sources. Like there's, WSDA
Got it.
areas that have ag on them, on parcels that are not identified as ag by the county. So where are those clusters happening to keep that continuity, that contiguous nature?
I mean, one thing that I'm hearing from Zora and from Justin is bringing the local context to these maps feels really important.
This is Tyler again. One other question I had, and I don't know if it really would pertain to ag use, but I'm looking along the East Fork Valley out of La Center, and I'd be curious to know how much of that is currently owned by the county's Legacy Lands program that's tied up in that East Fork Trail project, because a lot of that was historically farmland, and to the best of my knowledge, it's not ever going to be really farmed again. There will be some grassy areas with hay cut on it, but a lot of it will be habitat enhancement projects. So if that's currently in ag use, it'd be interesting to see that area cut out.
I just want to add, this is Oliver. There are, as you know, and we will be working with a consultant. There's looking at some areas that are currently designated as ag. We are working on identifying land that the tribe have taken into trust so that we don't include it as ag. So that is something we need to flag. On parcelization, I think all I have heard is very important, but I also want to mention that, as you know, some folks create laws for tax purposes. So as we look at parcelization, we have to be able to say, yeah, when they come in for actual building permit, sometimes we have to do, it's not in my shop, but when I used to be in current planning, we would do verification of when that tax lot was created to see whether they can be able, whether they qualify or meet the platting laws that were in effect at the time that the lot was created. If they weren't, often we don't issue them. They won't be able to get a building permit, but they created the lot for tax purposes, but not for home site. So just want to make that observation. But all I'm hearing are good things that we have to look at, including the local context. And Justin, I think Beret have already mentioned we would like to get your data and your information to put that into the what the consultants are looking at.
I'm wondering, because we'll be looking at ag land and whether or not it's still viable ag land, but then we'll also be looking beyond agricultural land to see if land has been missed or should have been considered ag land. Can you talk a little bit about how you're going to do that?
Well, that is part of the used or capable of being used part of the WAC criteria. And that is why we have that study area. So it's not just contained to the agricultural designations. So the study area is sort of a broader window to look at things. So we want to put things in the context of what is happening in those land designations, but we do want to do analysis outside of that.
Zora Oppenheimer. If that's the case, if it can be used for ag, why is all the forestry excluded? Like I get that it's a pain in the butt to convert, but that does happen. And then there's other things like agroforestry.
So forest has, is also a resource lands designation. And when we brought this to council, they wanted to focus on ag and exclude the forest. So if we did this process, you can't have both. You would have to choose. And so that was part of the reason part of the time frame. You would have to go through a de-designation process to remove when you're choosing which one. So when this was originally done in 1994, there was forest designation, an agricultural designation, and some that weren't could fit in either or. And at the time, an agroforest, a hybrid, was created. We were appealed on that and lost because in court, the rules were it either had to be agriculture or forest. It couldn't be hybrid. And so a lot of what you're seeing in some of these maps is potentially some of that area that became most of our R10 and R20 zone lands ended up being that because they came out of that agroforest designation. And there were several committees that gave the council at the time input on what to do with that. And it all ended up not being resource designation. And so that could explain part of the rationale, not the rationale, but why you're seeing a lot of the areas outside of the ag designation that are showing up as prime, and that you're seeing a lot of current use activity on those lands. And so that's part of the study, is to try to, I mean, you've got two real good indicators right now that, there's prime soils and they're being used for agriculture.
How many acres was that went from ag forest to rural?
I believe, Mrs. Oliver, I believe we identified 35,000 acres was the total. They narrowed it down to the remaining 3,500, but all of them, the entire 35,000, from what I recall, and we may get back to be factual, went to Rural 5, Rural 10, and Rural 20.
I think Chris has a comment. Hands up.
Thanks, I do. In terms of legal ability to designate a hybrid natural resource area, Jose is absolutely correct. It cannot be done. We've already lost that battle in the courts, and no point in raising it again. If there is land that was designated rural after the 94 plan was appealed, that should be designated for agriculture, that's a different question. And there is nothing that I know of that prohibits that.
Well, we have some time here. Can you all walk us through the timeline of what happens next and when the commission will be asked to provide feedback? I think going back to Matthew's point, feels urgent to get some feedback to y'all, and we want to make sure that we're ready.
Okay, so we're having the open house next Tuesday to get some feedback on some of this very similar material that we'll be taking out. We may adjust some of the maps that we take to the public based on your feedback. Not sure if it would make a lot of sense to provide and show maps that aren't as accurate. and reflect what's currently happening based on your input. And then after that, public open house will get the feedback from that. Our deadline to get a report out is November 4th. We're looking at having a second open house sometime October 22nd, when you're scheduled to meet again. We were thinking of either having that day where we could, not sure if we're going to have results to share at that point, but we getting real close to that. And again, the report's due the 4th. We're having the work session with council on the 12th of November. And we are looking at putting publishing our draft environmental impact statement on October 1st with a 60-day comment period. This process is part of the comprehensive plan update. So there will be an opportunity to submit comments on that. The council and planning commission are meeting in early January to consider the preferred alternative. What comes out of this study is going to be a huge input into the consideration for that, because there's several of the alternatives, that have expansions of the UGAs into resource lands.
Zora Oppenheimer, what feedback are you asking for in the public workshops?
Similar to this is like, these are the things that we're considering as part of the methodology. Is there anything we're missing in evaluating the WAC criteria? We really want to get some feedback on food security. That was something that was added. It's in the WAC as an option. It's not something we've done before. Trying to operationalize how we can use food security as a metric to determine whether some land would qualify as commercially significant agriculture. That would be a huge.
This is Joe Zimmerman. I want to share something with the group. Jose, thank you for mentioning that they want to try to I don't know what word to be, quantify food security. A number of years ago, my dad was at a growers meeting for vegetable production down in Canby. Had to do with the Oregon State University Extension Service down there. And there was a gentleman that was speaking, and he was from Ireland, and he was talking about new growing practices for something. I can't remember what. But my dad ended up at the lunch line eating next, or, standing next to this gentleman. He goes, "It's amazing to see how much emphasis you guys put on local food production. This little country of Ireland that, as I understand it, doesn't have great soil and stuff like that." And the guy looked at my dad and he simply said, "You've never been hungry here."
I'm going to go back to the timeline. It sounds like the commission will have an opportunity to provide feedback sometime between October 22nd and November 3rd.
And even past that, we're having the work session with council. I don't know that there's going to be a decision made by November. So, and the comp plan, we're continuously accepting public comment and feedback, but it would be specific to what's in the report. And
okay.
Yeah.
if I may add, this is Oliver. The workshop on September 30th, while it will include the public, we're also inviting you to be there. But prior to that, feel free to submit your concern. Some of us took a note today. So continue to provide your comment, what you would like to see, what is missing from, as I indicated earlier, this is from various sources that, the data may not be perfect, but that is the source that we are relying on relative to the soil for now. There may be other local contexts or local issues that we need to consider, but you all are farmers, we are not. You know the land very well, so anything you think that we are missing, it could be local context, it could be your experience. I go back to Justin, if there are good data sources that you think we are missing or we should look at, I encourage you to send that to us so that the consultant can consider that. If it is from the conservation district, anything you believe that needs to be considered, we are relying on you as who we may call the major stakeholders to give us your feedback, what you would like to see or what we are missing. So this 30th, I'm inviting all of you to come, provide your input. As Jose indicated, you can submit it in writing. We are receiving comment until the council makes the final decision. Even when the report is finished, you can still continue to provide comment and your suggestion and your recommendation and what you would like to see. This report will feed into helping the council in particular and the public and the planning commission to help us, in addition with the draft environmental impact statement that will be issued coming October, that looked at the current 3 scenarios that the cities have submitted. The outcome of that and the outcome of this study will help us and the council to get to what the preferred alternative will look like. So your input is very key. We are going to be, expecting that at the workshop, the public will have opportunity, including the cities who are planning partners, will have opportunity to provide their own input into this study, because that is really key. I have said this openly and I will continue to say it. I don't know what this study is going to say. It may come back and show that as we are looking at this for now, that there are other areas that needs to be designated as ag. That's not Oliver's decision. If that is the outcome of the study, that is something that the council will have to face. How would the property owners react? I don't know. If the study comes out and shows some areas that no longer needs to be designated as ag, you can weigh, you can make suggestions. You know the land very well, but that's also a decision that the council will have to make either way. So there are implications of doing this study that is yet unknown, but we need your input as the major stakeholders. That's what we are looking for.
I would just add, I would like you all to feel empowered to communicate with the council directly whenever you have a suggestion or concern. I think the earlier, there are these formal processes, but you can communicate with the council at any point. And if you do have concerns, it would be better, I think, for the council to hear those sooner than later.
I have a question about whether there's any data available of what has been grown in the county besides the ag census, because that is pretty dated. And I'm just thinking about foods. When you thought about food security, it seems more important to look at what can be grown here. And basically what is being grown and what has been grown in the past is a pretty good indication of what can be grown. And to me, that relates directly to food security and what the needs are in the county, and how big the need is and how much it's increased and increasing. So does anyone know of any data besides the ag census for what's been grown in the county?
The cropscape data I showed earlier that I think was not indicative of reality does go back 30 years or so. I don't know how far back the Washington state layer goes. So that is something to look at. Yeah, those are the only two data sources that I know of in terms of like practical mapping data that we could utilize.
Ruth Vandersholm, my concern is that we're putting a lot of time into this, but something I think we talked about maybe in our first meeting or second was that sometimes cities expand their boundaries. And I'm looking at, there's 3 main areas around Vancouver where there's a lot of irrigated land. 2 of those are not in lowlands and have a major road running right by them, which development tends to follow. So here we are trying to plan ag land and zoning and all sorts of things and balancing stuff. So what if in 5 years Vancouver says, we'll take that? Then we've put a lot of work into trying to balance agriculture and find new ag land and whatnot, but we've just lost, a majority of the ag land that has irrigation currently being used on it. And as we know, that can't be transferred. So we're putting a lot of work into something that a couple of cities, because there's 2 big areas right next to Vancouver and Camas, they could undo a lot of our work, right? Or am I seeing this wrong?
All right. So cities can propose UJ expansions, but the council has to approve those.
And they have to be compliant with the GMA. And agriculture, and why we're doing this is because there are a couple of cities that are proposing to expand onto agricultural land, not the city of Vancouver, but that's why we're talking about this now.
I'm looking at the time. Should we move on to good of the order? All right, anybody got anything, topics for future meetings? Other comments or announcements before we wrap this thing up?
I have one thing. I'm curious if it would be possible or perhaps appropriate to get an opportunity to hear from the counselors in terms of the topics and initiatives that they're interested in for the Ag Commission. I know that we're doing a survey of everybody on the commission, but if there are particular topics or areas that the council is interested in us tackling, I think it would be of interest to folks.
I'm not quite sure the best way to gather that information. I know sometimes there's one-on-one meetings with the county manager and individual counselors, or a survey could go out to the counselors asking that question, or we can send that question to the counselors right now.
Would it be possible to invite them to one of these meetings? I mean, it's obviously up to them if they decide to join, but give them the opportunity to join us for a meeting?
It would just need to be noticed if the entire council showed up. So,
Sure.
So there would be that. But I think an invitation can be extended.
I might add that Lauren and I have instituted a regular meeting with the chairs and vice chair to discuss each agenda. We do this with other groups that we staff in our department, and it's very valuable. And so all of you, please, if you have ideas, even outside of Mo's great survey work, funnel that to us, funnel that to Mo and Joe and Justin, and then we will discuss that at the agenda setting meetings, and that's a direct pipeline for content.
Yeah, I know it's about approaching 8 o'clock. I too will be talking internally with Bart and Lauren. And another opportunity for you, I know that Mo is going to be sending out this survey. You can also do a retreat where you brainstorm on issues and then you prioritize them as how you want to work on them. So that opportunity is available to you. You got a long way to go. So I wanted to just push that out there. Joe, I know you have talked about the code enforcement issues and so forth. I too will be talking to having a discussion internally to see whether there's opportunity to have code enforcement staff or the community development interim, because we don't have a permanent yet, interim community development director to come to this meeting and share, answer some questions that you may have. They also do what is called a community development learning lab that is also available. They have that on, I believe they show that on WebEx, that the public can participate, and it's topical. This month or next month, they'll be doing, focusing on, I believe they're inviting the county treasurer to be there on property tax and defilement, and so that the public would, that would be an opportunity where the issue that you're raising can be a topic that they can also research and do a public outreach so that the public know what is required, what the code required, and so forth. But that, is something that we can talk internally and decide what is the best approach to address those issues. So we are having conversation internally. Just want to put that out there to you.
Thanks. Very nice.
Zora Oppenheimer. This was such a vast amount of data. I mean, super valuable. It's hard for me to digest in a setting like this fast, while I'm reading and listening and trying to understand numbers and really comprehend. And I'm wondering if we can get this kind of thing a few days ahead of time, because it's so hard to process and everything. Is that possible in the future? It's not possible.
That's our goal. We really don't like, we understand that the amount of data, and we apologize. It's not very productive to provide this to you that quickly and expect you to have digested that. We usually try to get information out at least a week, if not two. It's just the time constraint of this project has been really, really challenging.
Mine's still warm off the printer. Yeah.
Enjoy.
I did have something, but I want to make sure everybody else gets a chance. Anybody else?
Mo, I just didn't know if you wanted to tackle the meeting, at least for next month, the date issue, or not. We can do it in email too.
Look at this. Thanks, guys. All right. We did think about one date, October 2nd.
There you go. Now use it.
Okay, so moving the next month's meeting from October 22nd to October 29th. So it'd be the fifth Wednesday.
Okay.
There are not a lot of fifth Wednesdays. So hopefully that would work for folks. We'll send that out. I'm getting a no from Diane. How about we send it out over email and we see if we can get the majority of folks with a yes. Does that work, Lauren? Because there's some folks not here tonight too. Let's see if we can get a quorum for the 29th.
Yeah. Good thing no one runs a pumpkin patch in this group, right?
The 29th would be really boring then.
Oh, okay, good.
For some reason by that, sorry, can I see that? There you go. For some reason by that time, everybody's found their pumpkin and is done.
Yep.
So actually the 29th would be perfect for us. As we finish up here, I'm going to pass around a little article that I printed off, just to show of hands, who here has not heard of the Capitol Press? Anybody? You know the Capitol Press? Okay. Yeah. So the Capitol Press is our local Northwest ag, what do you call it? Trade paper, if you will. Anyhow, this is just an article. Washington State did just so you guys know, if you ever heard that Busy Farms is going, leaving the county and moving to Idaho, it's not going to be because of water rights. It's going to be because of regulation. And this is just an article about the wonderful regulation in the state of Washington. And it's being misreported that there's all these massive layoffs in the ag sector, and they're scaring up a lot of well, they're promoting an awful lot of fear. And what it comes down to is that they are enforcing a law. They're taking a federal law and making it statewide, that if you're going to lay off more than 50 employees at once, you got to have 60 days notice. And then even though the federal law has an exemption for agriculture, the state said, nope, no exemption. And where it's hitting ag in a big way is there's an awful lot of seasonal farm workers. They don't have 60 days notice. Think back in July and you go, when are you guys going to be done picking apples? When we're done picking apples. And they go, well, if you can't guess within X amount of days, we're going to sue you. And anyhow, that's what they finish up with is there's actually a law firm that has started up a class action to essentially try to chase down all these Washington farms that they're going to then accuse of improper firings and stuff like that. And of course, the farms are saying, we do this every year. We've done it every year since the dawn of time. So just thought I'd share that with you guys. Gotta love farming. Rude, do you guys use a lot of H2A? No?
This is Rude. We avoid H2A like the plague.
Okay. Us too.
We'll add this article to the meeting record.
Anything else? All right. Hearing none, can I get a motion to go home? Or I move. Oh, to adjourn. Sorry, you got to say to adjourn. A second?
I second.
All those in favor of going home?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
There you go. Thank you.